Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Airspeed Reads Naruto video. This is going to be for volume 70 of the manga, which is called Naruto and the Sage of Six Paths. Very nice cover on this one, with obviously this being the volume where the Sage of Six Paths is properly, I suppose, introduced. You know, Kaguya is introduced. We get the idea that Naruto and Sasuke are the most current reincarnations of the Sage of Six Paths sons, Ashura and Indra, and the reveal that Hashirama and Madara were also previous reincarnations. So the cover very much represents kind of that as we kind of go forward. But yeah, another 11 chapter volume here. We cover 669 to 679. The 8 Inner Gates formation, He of the Beginning, Naruto and the Sage of Six Paths, Night Guy, We Will, Sasuke's Rinnegan, Your Current Dream, The Infinite Tsukiyomi, My Will Is, and She of the Beginning. So lots of stuff to cover here. You can probably see the amount of pages I have noted in this volume. Probably going to go through this quite quickly because I know a lot of these are just one page after the other. I think I noted as I was reading through this that most of the first 70 or so pages are really important and lots of stuff happens, so that's why I have so many notes early on. And yeah, so where we start is with Guy obviously using the 8 inner gates, and we get the idea of the what the kind of attacks are. And the first one is obviously the Sekizo evening elephant. We see Lee go into the 6th gate to kind of protect everyone while Guy is doing what he's doing, and we see that it's basically this kind of 5-step attack here, and he really kind of blitzes Madara in this 8 gates mode. And it's left to kind of, I think, Minato to kind of block the truth-seeking balls that Madara throws at him, and he gets really badly injured here, but it doesn't seem like it's doing a ton of damage to him. And it's just this idea of that Guy now pretty much only has one attack left, and where is he going to go from here? Will this one attack be enough to take out Madara and give everyone time to kind of get things going? Because immediately after that, Naruto kind of wakes up and it's just where am I? Am I dead? And this is where we see that Naruto meets the Sage of Six Paths, Hagoromo Otsutsuki. And by the end of this whole sequence, it's revealed also that Sasuke was having a very similar conversation, but different obviously, with the Sage of Six Paths at the same time, basically. But the first thing that we get here is just, it's actually a humorous kind of initial reveal, just because the Sage of Six Paths initially speaks super formally, with these and thous and stuff like that, and Naruto has no idea what he's saying, and he basically just says, "Speak a lot simpler, please." And Hagoromo's just oh yeah, there's been so much time that's passed, and he's confusing Naruto even with just saying that, and then speaks "Oh, that's a bit much, don't you think? An alien, seriously, ah ha ha," and he gets almost overly non-formal, and Naruto's just "I can't take you seriously at all because you look so formal, but you're speaking completely informal." And so it's just the first aspect of what they're talking about is just getting to a stage where the Sage of Six Paths is speaking to Naruto in a kind of manner he can understand, and it's just okay, be formal, but don't use as many complicated words, is basically what it comes down to here. And the initial thing is just him explaining the difference between that he is the founder of Ninshu, and he doesn't really like to see himself as being the creator of ninjutsu, which is kind of what caused conflict in the world, which ultimately we find out, I suppose, in the anime and stuff like that, isn't actually the case. He didn't create ninjutsu. That was actually Indra who, in a way, invented that. The idea of actually controlling these powers, and not just kind of having inherent powers, actually using specific techniques to make a certain power come out. He was all about Ninshu, which was about connecting people. And this is where we first get the idea that Naruto is a reincarnation of his son, Ashura. And, Naruto is confused by this, just by, I suppose, the idea of what a reincarnation even is. But he goes into the full backstory, basically explaining that his mother, Kaguya, came to this land from far away in order to claim the fruit of the divine tree. That's how chakra came into being. over time people came to worship and also fear Kaguya. She later had 2 children, Hagoromo and his brother, and they kind of had to atone for the crimes of their mother that was left behind, and so that's how Hagoromo became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, and that's how the kind of big fight happened. And then we get explained that Hagoromo also had two children, Indra and Ashura, and he basically explains that one of them was exceptional at incredibly skilled and had basically the eye powers which he inherited from his father, which was Indra, and then the dunce younger brother Ashura, who inherited the kind of strong chakra of his father, and that is Ashura. And very clearly you can see that this is an immediate comparison to Naruto and Sasuke, in that they're not the same, as we find out if you watch that kind of filler arc of Naruto where this is covered in depth. They are subtly different, though still being the same kind of archetype of character, in the same way that like Hashirama is similar to Naruto, but he is different. We get that here, and it's just a connection of the idea of like Naruto came from exceptional parents, but it took him so long to actually get to a point where he was himself skilled. And he just explains that Indra was a genius but was often kind of on his own and thought that power could achieve anything, whereas Ashura struggled to get to the point where he was anyway near as powerful as his brother. And it took him, I suppose, gaining comrades and kind of having people who cared around him to kind of develop that power. But he did eventually awaken the power of his chakra and become somewhat level with Indra. And just the idea of like the Sage of Six Paths basically then chose Ashura as the next one to, I suppose, lead the Ninshu going forward, and ended up kind of making Indra feel like I suppose some sort of an outcast, that he wasn't chosen. The like most technically gifted one wasn't the one that was chosen. He chose the person who had the better kind of ideals over the more powerful one. And it's just this kind of note that like Indra did not accept my decision, and from that day this indeterminable conflict began. And it's the setup of that. It's the chakra thing versus the Susanoo, in a way, kind of to represent the fight between these two reincarnations. And it's it's in or around this point that he asks him immediately then, you probably already know who the reincarnation of Indra is, and Naruto immediately knows that it's Sasuke. And this is where he informs them about the fact that Madara and Hashirama are the other reincarnations, and that here's the explanation for how Madara has the Rinnegan, because effectively he was a reincarnation of Indra. He basically grafted a part of a Ashura reincarnation onto himself, effectively combining the two chakras of the Sage of Six Paths children to make up the Sage of Six Paths chakra himself. And that is where the Sage of Six Paths power came out in Madara, which is the Rinnegan. And he reveals here that he was the one who left behind the Uchiha stone tablet with the idea to kind of reform one's thinking in Indra and his reincarnates, to try and, like, I suppose, put them on a better path. And obviously that's how it initially seems right now, that Madara has just completely misinterpreted this this stone tablet. But Naruto, the big connection he makes is just that he kind of empathizes with the Sage of Six Paths, just saying that, like, so you've basically been watching your kids quarrel for, like, generations over and over again. And he just notes here that the Sage of Six Paths says, chakra is a power that links individuals, and it's not meant to be power that amplifies a single person's strength. And that's kind of what happened to Kaguya, that she helped things initially, but eventually all of the power residing within her, people came to fear her. She, fell to her kind of hubris and became kind of hated as a demon, and, conflict arose from there. And it's very similar with Madara in terms of what he's trying to do. And, the infinite Tsukiyomi, he explains the full details of it, in that it keeps someone alive, attached to the divine tree to kind of power it, but that they're effectively not alive anymore. And he wants Naruto to stop Madara. And, this is where Naruto just notes that, the whole idea of the the Biju and kind of him having separated them in the past is actually really good because of the connection that Naruto now has with them. And this is where the reveal of like, oh, Obito had taken part of the One Tails and Eight Tails chakra from a couple of volumes ago. Here's where it comes into play, in that Naruto now has aspects of all of the tail beasts inside him now, including One and Eight Tails. And so we get a little bit of Shukaku here, and Kurama, and also the fact that the Sage of Six Paths notes here that you're right, Kurama, just as Gamamaru prophesied, a blue-eyed youth who can name the nine-tailed beasts and frolic among them. So just that Gamamaru, who's obviously, super giant Gramps Toad Sage or whatever his name was, he's the one who gave the whole, child of prophecy prediction. He also gave a prophecy to the Sage of Six Paths, kind of establishing how old he is, or actually, I suppose in the grand scheme of things, given that there's only like a couple of reincarnations of them all, it's not that long ago, I suppose. But, just the idea that this is where it really comes into play, the fact that, Naruto knowing all of the tailed beasts is such an important thing, that their names are important, and the fact that Naruto has learned all of their names is very, very important. And he just says, I do know what comrades are, and I want to protect them, that's all. And we find out that, Sasuke has also been involved in this, and they both agree, basically, to what's happening here. And he basically just explains to them here the reason he's taking a different approach here, in terms of, like, not just immediately going to Naruto and saying, you're the next Ashura reincarnation, I'll give you all of the power, you stop it, because you're the good one. He actually, this time, gives, half of his power to Sasuke, half of his power to Naruto, and basically says, I've separated it equally among you. Maybe together you can kind of, fix the kind of cycle that's happened up to now. And it's just this big note of, like, Naruto says that even though Sasuke and him aren't brothers, he believes that they can make peace because they're pretty good friends. And the reveal here is that part of the visual kind of notification of their power that they have is obviously that on each of their dominant hands they have a special seal. So Naruto has a kind of basically a circle, a sun seal, and then Sasuke has a dark or moon seal on his hand. And the importance of this isn't revealed just yet in terms of like the sealing jutsu stuff, but it is very important that this kind of represents their power. We get a little bit of flashback as we cut back to Guy here and see he's about to launch into his last big attack, and he just notes that this little flashback of a time when basically Guy and Kakashi, just before they started at the academy, their fathers actually met, and just kind of this big note of like, at this stage Guy hadn't actually qualified to attend the academy, but he kind of thanks Kakashi for his support, even though Kakashi was basically pretty rude to him. And his father to Kakashi just says, you ought to ask him his name and remember it. He'll be a great rival for you one day. And the idea that like at the rate he's training, that boy will become stronger than you, because Kakashi's father notes how much training Guy has gone through just to qualify for the academy. And it's just this note in the present day of basically, this is the moment effectively where Guy surpasses Kakashi in a way. It's obviously like a symbolic moment for Guy, even though I think most would probably agree that like, the nature of Guy's power means that, he could probably defeat Kakashi, but like it would be it would be the death of both of them if they ever fought full force against one another. Just because of how Guy's power works. But Madara does note, of all those who have fought me over the years, there's no one who surpasses you at taijutsu. And we get the last attack of Guy, which is called the Night Guy, which is this crazy powerful kick that just pretty much annihilates Madara. We see even in his kind of full-on Jinchuriki form, Ten Tails Jinchuriki form, it completely like cracks his skeleton. And basically, as we see it, when he's on the ground, it's kind of blown away like half of his body, but he's still alive, and he just notes that like, I almost died there, as it looks like Guy is about to die, like just the energy is just kind of emanating from him, and his chakra's about to go out. As Madara goes to finish him off, Naruto arrives, and the big kind of reveal is that he kicks, just physically kicks one of the truth-seeking orbs away, which is not meant to be something that can happen. He seems to just touch Guy on the chest and immediately stop the kind of effect of the 8 inner gates, and that like he's not healed or anything like that, but the aspect of it that's going to kill him has kind of faded away at this point in time. And Naruto just notes that I think I can change everything now, and it's this big reveal that Naruto has all of these powers, and the first use of it is that he uses this Sage Art Lava Style Rasen Shuriken, using some of Son Goku's power to kind of do this crazy Rasen Shuriken attack that does a ton of damage. And we see that Naruto almost doesn't have control over it, as he kind of chops the Divine Tree in half, and we get the Divine Tree basically asking Madara, you know, take the Divine Tree, 10 Tails, all of me into you. And that's exactly what Madara actually does, that it goes inside him, and he's effectively the full-on, complete Jinchuriki now. And I suppose the plot effect that this has is it means that what we're now waiting for is not the Divine Tree to blossom and the eye on the top of the tree to come out and reflect off the moon. Now that power is actually within Madara, and later on, of course, it's revealed that once he takes the kind of horn thing off the front of his head, it kind of is revealing a third eye, which is the kind of Sharingan eye that will reflect off the moon. So that kind of power has kind of gone into Madara now. And this is a moment here, Gaara meets Naruto again and says, you know, when you become Hokage, let's share a drink. And it's just the sheer confidence of Gaara saying that he knows one day Naruto will become Hokage is really kind of good to see. And yeah, what happens here is Naruto picks up one of Minato's kunais, and Tobirama basically, I think it transports him, the two of them there, and so there they are with their kind of new powers, Naruto and Sasuke, both ready to go. And the reveal here is that part of Sasuke's power is that one of his eyes is now a Rinnegan, so really cool now to see that. And Madara notes that effectively they both have like half of the power that he has in himself, and this is the final battle that's going to happen between the two of them. The fight is kind of crazy in that it's a lot of really high level jutsu, but the core of kind of what it's about is that Naruto and Sasuke need to handle the fact that one of Madara's jutsu, the limbo thing, the shadows, the like literal kind of shadow clone things that they can't see, they can now sort of see, and that Sasuke with his Rinnegan can see them, Naruto with his chakra sensing abilities can sense them, and together they kind of have to work to deal with the fact that there's Madara, but there's also like Shadow Madara, and there's kind of multiple ones of them that are quite dangerous. And we see they get an initial advantage over him as we kind of cut back to the fact that Madara still only has one Rinnegan in his in him basically, and Obito, Black Zetsu, still has one of them, and he's with Sasuke and Sakura, and he's basically asking for it to be destroyed. In the meantime, though, what he does is he grabs, he basically just rips the Sharingan out of Kakashi's eye and puts that in his eye kind of temporarily. And he kind of uses that to his advantage temporarily as he tries to go into the world to basically get at Obito, who is in the space-time dimension. So he actually cleverly chooses kind of which eye to take, in that using Kakashi's Kamui, he goes into the dimension to get the eye he actually wants, which is the Rinnegan. So what happens is effectively Obito teleports Sakura out so she's safe, but we basically know at this point that Madara is going to get his hands on the other Rinnegan, and that's what's going to happen next. And you know, he wants the other eye destroyed, but before that can happen, we do get I suppose what is effectively the final confrontation between Obito and Madara. And it's the reveal here is effectively that Obito was always just a pawn for Madara. That as much as it seemed like they were kind of somewhat equals in the plan, it's revealed here that it was all just part of Madara's plan. Everything that happened was part of that. That the second he had Obito with him, everything after that had been planned to get Obito onto his side as part of the plan. It's revealed here that the plot to make Rin into the Three Tails Jinchuriki was his. It was Madara's idea, not that village's that they were fighting at that time. and it was a plan to make Obito fall into darkness, basically. That all of this that happened, he chose a specific time when Minato wouldn't be present. He chose a time when Kakashi would be on a mission with her, so that there kind of would be only one option. And the only thing that went wrong really was the nature of kind of how it happened. He didn't expect Rin to kind of sacrifice herself in that way against Kakashi, but in a way it kind of worked in his favor, that it ruined Obito even more, that he saw this happen, and this kind of almost betrayal from Kakashi initially, even though he finds out later on the truth. But yeah, we get the idea. He gets his eye back, and Naruto does come over to Kakashi pretty soon afterwards, and basically just puts his hand over his eye, and Kakashi has his normal eye back. So he has no Sharingan anymore, but he does have two normal eyes back, and it's this kind of cool moment of just that Naruto basically has this almost creation healing technique, and now with both eyes, Kakashi is there with his three students. Team 7 is back together in a way, and just kind of reflects on the past. We get the initial meeting of the group where they reveal their kind of dreams and kind of what they like the most. So this is the I'm Uzumaki Naruto, I like instant cup ramen, and the ramen where Iruka treats me to it and he wants to become Hokage. The whole Sasuke, I don't like much of anything, and the Sakura, just like the only thing that she likes is Sasuke. And then he kind of notes how kind of far they've all come, in the fact that Naruto has basically surpassed the Hokage. He's acknowledged by all and become a hero, but it's still his dream to become Hokage. And he notes that Sakura has always cared about Sasuke, but her feelings have changed in that it's on a totally different level that she loves him now. And even though he's attempted to take her life before, she just cares about him so much, and he notes how kind of kind and gentle she is. And when he comes to Sasuke, he's still unsure about how he feels about Sasuke, in that, it turned out I didn't even understand you after all. And he asks him what's his current dream, and it's noted here that it's again to become Hokage, but before they can properly resolve that, the fight properly continues next, with Madara now with both Rinnegan ready to kind of go. And it looks like Obito is basically more or less dead, even though Black Zetsu is still present with control over Obito. But we'll see what happens with Black Zetsu in just a few minutes. Sakura, in an effort to kind of keep up with Naruto and Sasuke, who are getting progressively stronger, uses myopic regeneration to kind of stay in the fight, and acts as a diversion here. She takes a hit, knowing she can heal off the damage, to give an opening for Sasuke and Naruto, but it doesn't quite work because of how powerful Madara now is, being like complete Ten Tails Jinchuriki with the entire divine tree within him, and having both Rinnegan. So he's incredibly powerful at this point. They do manage to kind of save Sakura and take her away from this, and throughout this whole thing they're kind of noting that like Sasuke isn't really paying any attention to Sakura. There's kind of not a lot of respect towards her, but Madara just further demonstrates his power. He uses what is a catastrophic planetary construction this time around, so it's not devastation. Instead, what he does, he takes of huge chunks of the earth, and it's basically the planetary devastation technique that like Nagato has used, except he makes like multiple versions of it, and it's just 10 times more powerful than it was before. And this gives him a big enough of an opportunity to finally awaken his kind of central eye reflected off the moon, and the plan has finally actually occurred. The Infinite Tsukiyomi is now active, and effectively this means defeat for everyone. As if they look at the moon, they are under this genjutsu, and it's more or less established that like no one is immune to it, which turns out to be the case, except if you're reanimated, if you're an Edo Tensei, you can survive it without going under the genjutsu. And then the big reveal for our hero characters is that Sasuke's Susanoo can actually block out the light from the moon and protect people. So there's definitely a couple of interesting things as we see a lot of our main characters, the other Kage, go under the genjutsu. We see Tenten go over the genjutsu. But they do make an odd point of just noting that, yeah, 1010 actually seals the Sage of Six Paths tools away, which is interesting in that I don't think there's any plot relevance to her having those tools after this point. But yeah, so he makes this happen, Madara, and it's just noting that sort of the shadow of Kaguya is kind of over this. They don't really make any mention right now of what's happening, but just the implication that stuff like this is happening and everyone is taken under the Genjutsu across the entire world. And yeah, that's what happens. We see Hinata, Tsunade, Mei, everyone go under this, except basically the only characters left are Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi, plus I suppose Obito, who is established to have survived this because Black Zetsu has control over him, and then a couple of the reanimated shinobi are still active. But yeah, everyone's taken over. We see some of their dreams in that, like, this is obviously a dream world, and we actually see some of the positive dreams that are happening here, in that Hinata dreams of basically being on a date with Naruto, with her sister, and Neji's still alive, kind of spying on them. Kiba dreams of being Hokage. Shino dreams of finding a giant kind of insect. Choji dreams of having food and a girlfriend. We see a lot of nice moments. Ino dreams of having boys fight over her. 1010's dream is that Guy and Lee are actually cool, and she doesn't mind them kind of talking to each other all the time and stuff like that. So that's a pretty fun one. And then probably the more serious ones are like Tsunade imagines Dawn being Hokage and like her being with him, Jiraiya still alive, messing around with Nawaki. And then I suppose the most notable one is Gaara'S Dream, where his family is happy, his father isn't trying to hurt him, his mother isn't dead, and then his friend comes over to see him, and that friend is Naruto. So it's just this idea that Gaara'S dream at this point was that, like, he had a friend when he was younger from other villages, and he just lived a happy life. So it's an interesting one in that they present all these happy moments and that these characters are literally living in this dream, but it is not reality. This is the control of the villains over this, and that they're not actually truly living at this point. Yeah, that's what happens here. Sasuke eventually turns off the Susanoo because the light of the moon and like the actual activation point of the infinite Tsukiyomi turns off after a while, and then they are confronted with Madara, who is effectively won at this point in time. But as he's about to, I suppose, fulfill his plan completely, Black Zetsu stabs him through the stomach, and he says, "Wrong, Madara. You are not a messiah, nor is this the end of things." And Madara goes on about how, like, you're my will. How can you possibly do this? I created you. You are my will incarnate. And the Black Zetsu reveals here that, wrong again, my will is Kaguya. So Black Zetsu is actually Kaguya's will incarnate. And what effectively happens here to kind of pretty much end the volume is that Madara is taken over in a way by Black Zetsu, and all of this power that's actually happening, the moon, the infinite Tsukiyomi being active, all of the conditions have basically been met for the return of Kaguya Otsutsuchi, which we see here as Madara is basically morphed by Black Zetsu into Kaguya. So there's that. And then the other thing they do, also Black Zetsu reveals, is that the White Zetsu, what they are, the ones that are currently present, are basically the people that Kaguya initially caught up when she used the Infinite Tsukiyomi for the first time, establishing that, like, okay, the Infinite Tsukiyomi, as far as we're aware, keeps everyone alive, but in this dream world. So if everyone's still active, there'll always be time to actually free them. But here's where it's revealed that they are actually slowly, over time, in the kind of cocoons that they're in, turned into White Zetsu, and that's the kind of threat that's happening here, that they'll basically become mindless zombies. But yeah, Kaguya, her power, they basically all note is like insane. It's even higher than Madara's, who was already like a way above everyone else. And the idea here is that she says, I don't want to like defeat you all here. And it seems like, oh, she's actually peaceful. She just kind of opens her eyes and like switches dimensions, and she's like, no, I'll defeat you all here. So just the power that with very little effort, she can just immediately switch dimensions is something that she can do. And that's the end reveal. Now, it is somewhat of a controversial moment from what I'm aware in the Naruto fandom, in that Madara had obviously been set up so much as the main villain of the series, and then like 2 volumes from the end you basically established that actually Kaguya is going to be the main villain. This is the end of Madara basically right now. Okay. It's one of those ones where, like, yes, I understand that frustration, but I think they'd done a decent job at setting up Kaguya enough and setting up all the pieces of, like, the stuff like the connection with the moon, kind of the whole Black Zetsu's thing. There clearly being more to him than meets the eye, and the fact that it seemed like Obito was the biggest pawn in everything, but now it obviously seems that Madara was actually the greatest kind of pawn of all time, in that very clearly Black Zetsu, in a way, had kind of subtly guided Madara to make the return of Kaguya happen, and it's just this huge further defeat for him, and it's going to be interesting to see obviously how they further kind of continue this. Is there anything more with Madara left, or is it just complete Kaguya focus from here on out? Obviously I've seen the anime, so I know what happens, but you know, interesting to see how exactly the manga, you know, does it, and is it any way different than the anime. But yeah, very important volume here with what happens. Naruto and Sasuke getting basically their last big power up. The meeting with the Sage of Six Paths was really good, with the whole Indra Ashura reveal. I think the only disappointment in a way is just that the way it was laid out, in the sense of like the end of last volume set up the 8 inner gates to be this huge thing with Guy, and it was. I just didn't like how it was kind of laid out, in that it was like end of last volume, started this volume. We have the whole Sage of Six Paths conversation, which is one of the most interesting things in the entire series. Then we cut back to the 8 inner gates and the final attack, and it's still good. I just feel Night Guy especially felt lower than it should have been, just because of what had happened just before, and in a way what happens immediately afterwards, that you're almost past, I'm not going to say like past caring about Night Guy, but just you're kind of, wait, what's happening with Naruto and Sasuke, and like the important kind of really heavy plot stuff. Guy's sacrifice is really awesome as well. It's just, you know, the timing of some of that stuff was a little bit weirdly done, but overall, a lot of really interesting stuff happening here. It is such a shocking moment where you just turn the page and just, oh, Madara has been betrayed. At his most powerful, he's been betrayed. The plan has literally just succeeded, and the betrayal happens. It's just like insane kind of betrayal moment. But yeah, that has been the volume review for volume 70 of Naruto. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the volume and the review. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.